To the Wellbeing Summit, Veteran Wellbeing Summit webinar. My name is Jackie Vanderveld and I'm a board member of Wellbeing Australia and a member of the Veteran Wellbeing Summit Organising Committee. I'm very pleased to be hosting this session this afternoon with the team from Queensland, the Queensland Government. In keeping with Wellbeing Australia's vision, we are gathering stories and people who have success in promoting veteran wellbeing, mental health and suicide prevention. Now, before I hand over to the team, I've got a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording this session and it will be available on demand after the live session has been accessible through. Next, we would love to hear from you during the presentation. So if you do have a question, please put that into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those after each of the presenters has spoken today. And last of all, I'd love to encourage you to share today's webinar and any information about the summit through your social networks using the hashtag VWS2019. So we have online, and I'm only going to introduce Kiralee first. So Kiralee, if you can wave and say hello. Kiralee is the Director of Corporate and Government Services at the Department of Premier and Cabinet at the Queensland Government. And I'm going to kill my microphone and my camera now and hand over to her as she throws to her team and introduces each person as they present. So thank you very much, team.
Great, thanks Jackie. As Jackie just said, I'm the Executive Director in Corporate and Government Services in the Queensland Government's Department of the Premier and Cabinet. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, and we're focusing today on what the Queensland Government is doing in a range of ways to support veterans with a range of different initiatives. I am joined today by three of my colleagues, also from the Queensland Government across a range of different departments who are leading pieces of work related to veterans matters. So first of all, you'll hear from Casey Bushell. Casey's the Manager of Workforce, Futures and Inclusions in the Public Service Commission. And Casey's leading a piece of work on the Queensland Government's Veterans Employment Pathway. Following on from Casey, Paul O'Driscoll will be speaking to you. Paul is the Director of the Office of the Director General and also Director of Strategic Projects, Communication and Governance in the Department of Communities, Disability Services and Seniors. And Paul has been heavily involved in the development of the Queensland Veterans Portal, an online portal. And then finally, we have Michael Cambridge. Give us a wave, Michael. So Michael is the Executive Project Director from the Capital Programs Unit in Building and Asset Services in the Department of Housing and Public Works. And Michael has been critically involved in the development of an initiative in Townsville called the Oasis Townsville. So I'd like to now hand over to Casey Bushell, who will talk to you about the Queensland Government's Veterans Employment Pathway.
Thanks Kiralee for the introduction, and so glad to be here today sharing a little bit of information about what we're doing to support veteran employment in Queensland across the sector. So as the state's largest employer, we are really committed to bringing together people from a real wide range of backgrounds and perspectives, and we know that veterans have that diversity and they have a wealth of experience and knowledge, and they've really demonstrated a commitment to public service. You know, they have transferable skills and they're very attractive both to the Queensland Government and in today's labour market. But even with these highly regarded skills, we know that sometimes it can be really difficult to translate some of those defence experiences and capabilities and skills into civilian roles and titles. And in particular, sometimes, you know, government language to add on top of that. So we know that can be difficult. So we're really committed to supporting our Defence Force men and women to find meaningful employment within the Queensland Government. And so in July last year, the Premier announced the Veterans Employment Pathway. So it was introduced to promote the sector as an employer of choice for veterans and really showcase the skills of veterans to hiring managers, but also to support veterans to join the sector. Yeah, so the pathway focused on 5 elements for success. So attracting veterans to the sector, through predominantly on online engagement, identifying 100 opportunities across the sector, so really working with agencies across the sector to sort of find suitable roles for veterans, promote veteran employment to both hiring managers and HR practitioners, to recruit through a targeted recruitment, so a veteran-only targeted recruitment campaign, really showcasing the diversity of roles that are in the sector, and then helping veterans to transition into the sector by providing some of those quality workplaces. So it has been just over a year. As I said, it launched in July last year. So I'll take you through a little bit about what we've done now, and then we can see what kind of success we've come to. So the first piece was around attracting veterans to the sector. So we launched a dedicated page for veterans, really showcasing who we are as an employer, and positioning us as an employer of choice for veterans. So the site included some information about our value proposition to veterans, but also some stories highlighting veterans that have already transferred into public sector life, and a bit about their story as well. So and we partnered with ex-service organisations to promote this page. The next thing we did was provide some support for veterans, so through some online content, and that included support for both veterans and for our hiring managers and practitioners. And I should say, when I say veterans, we refer to veterans in the broadest sense. So anyone who has transitioned from the ADF is included in our term veterans, just to be kind of clear there. Sometimes we do get a few questions there. And so as part of the pathway, we developed resources for veterans to help them apply for opportunities in the sector. So one of those things was an online sort of rank matching tool to help veterans understand how their rank and experiences within the ADF might then align with Queensland Government roles, as well as our leadership sort of framework, so our leadership competencies for Queensland. And so we provided also hiring managers with some information, equally helping them to try and understand how ranks transition sort of relate to Queensland Government roles, as well as some tips and tricks, and even a bit of myth busting on the types of roles that veterans can join, and really trying to sort of broaden their perspective around those sorts of types that, veterans can really apply and are capable at anything that the sector really offers. So, and really another piece in that was encouraging hiring managers to provide that really meaningful feedback to veterans if they aren't successful, to help them. We know that veterans haven't always prepared a lot of resumes and participated in a lot of interviews. So making sure that those hiring managers who are running through those processes can give veterans some feedback so that, they can improve their experience next time. So another piece that we did focused on the veterans virtual careers fair. So we hosted our first ever Veterans Virtual Careers Fair in November last year. It was designed to really deliver on that election commitment of identifying 100 suitable opportunities for veterans and showcasing some of those, the diversity of roles and the diversity of organisations that fall within the Queensland Government banner. So for those that have never seen a virtual careers fair before, because, let's face it, not all of us have, this is a bit of what it looks like inside. So there was a bit of a lobby and an information desk, and you could sort of virtually walk through to individual agencies and chat online with those agencies, and the hiring managers there about roles that they had at that particular time. So I'll just head back there for a second. I'll tell you a bit more about that. So we attracted 480 veteran registrations, and there was about 130 human resource professionals and hiring managers that attended that, and 23 Queensland Government agencies represented. So on that day alone, we identified 94 job opportunities just in that one-day event for veterans. So it was a great success there. So I guess, how are we going so far? So we are doing, we have made the 100 opportunities by far. We've employed 316 veterans across a really broad range of roles. So as I said, there was, some myth busting there around the types of roles that veterans could join. And so the broad range in health and teaching, community-based roles, trades, there's, any role you can think of, we've employed a veteran in there, across a broad range of locations. So not just Brisbane-based, but Townsville, South Sunshine Coast, all the way up to Wide Bay, so all across the state. So we're really proud of our efforts in supporting veterans to join the sector. So next steps, just kind of wrapping up my piece of the puzzle. We'll continue to promote veterans and really showcase their skills across the sector. And also refine our material and support that we have for veterans to make sure that it really hits the mark. And we're also working more broadly around making it easier for people to apply for Queensland Government roles, not just in that veteran specific piece, but just in general. How do we make it easy and more enjoyable for people to apply for roles? So there's some of the things that are coming up next, but that's probably a quick overview of what we're doing in the employment space for Queensland Government. So I will hand over to Paul for the next part of the session. He's going to give you a little bit of an overview on the Veterans portal, the Queensland Government Veterans portal.
Thanks very much, Casey. As Casey mentioned, I've been involved in standing up the Queensland Veterans portal. It was first launched by our Assistant Minister Howard in December last year. And if people want to have a look, I don't have a PowerPoint to show, but if people want to go online later and have a look, the web address is www.qld.gov.au/veterans. So we put this portal together as trying to provide a one-stop shop for veterans where they can go and get information, whether they be thinking about transitioning out of the Defence Force or whether they've been out of the Defence Force for some time. We tried to think about what we could put there that they might need. If you have a look on the portal, it has a whole range of information. One of the best features is we have a one-place search function. So people can go on there, they can type in virtually any sort of service in Queensland, and it'll show on an interactive map display, which most people will be familiar with, the services in their local area, all the information for them, what they do, how to contact them, that sort of thing. If people put in the word veteran into their search term, it'll narrow it down to, for example, veteran employment services or whatnot. So if you can, I'd encourage people to get on and have a look. Again, it is Queensland specific, so anyone on the webinar that's in Queensland might find it useful, but people in other states as well, they might be able to have a look and see what they want to do for their areas. We also have a whole range of resources on that portal. One of them is the employment pathways that Casey talked to, so the portal links off to their webpage. We then have a whole range of other categories like accommodation and housing, health and wellbeing, ex-service organisations and concessions. So that was first launched in December last year, and what we've done since then is go on the road to find out from veterans and people who provide services to veterans, is the portal fit for purpose or does it need any improvement? So as part of that, during February to April this year, we held about 11 workshops across Queensland where we went and met with veterans and their families and service organisations to ask them what they thought about it. The responses we got were very positive. People told us in general that the portal was useful and is this something that's needed. I know there are other portals out there. I know DVA have a portal as well. Ours is a bit different to that. Again, ours is Queensland specific. Their service search tool, from what I've seen, is mostly services that they fund, whereas ours covers any type of service. So services can go on and register themselves on there for people to find through the search function. And as part of those forums, we also got a bit of feedback on small changes that we could make to, again, make it a bit more accessible and relevant to veterans. So some of those things included being clearer on the webpage about what its purpose was, and some instructions on how to use it and how to navigate through the portal and its various capabilities. Also adding more information on things like finance and legal, family support and volunteering. We've made some changes to the one-place search function and where that's positioned on the pages to make it a bit, I guess, as people are working through the various pages, just for the usability side of things. And also clear instructions on how services can get on and register to put their business on it. So when people use the search function, they can, find them and get in contact with those services. So in the last few months, we've been working on all those changes and retesting them back again with groups of organisations and veterans. And the next release, we're almost ready to go live with that. And I'm hoping in the next week or so, we'll be making an announcement for that to go live with the next release. So in a nutshell, that's the Queensland Veterans Portal. I think Jackie's showing it on screen now, and I'll welcome any questions at the end. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Paul. The Oasis Townsville project is a Queensland Government initiative from 2018, where the government is committed to repurpose former government buildings at Anoomba in Townsville for the Oasis Townsville to provide a one-stop shop for welfare support and employment transition services to ex-Australian Defence Force personnel and their families. So my task is to ensure that the project is completed. The government has committed 1.8 million for land, and the state government has also committed another 4.73 million of funding to complete the design and allow the initial construction works to occur. Separately, the Queensland Government, through its relationship with the Commonwealth Government Department of Veterans Affairs, is currently negotiated for an additional $5 million to be provided by the Department of Veterans Affairs over the next year to assist with completion of the building works. 3 builders, local builders in Townsville, have already been selected to build the building. And there was a major event occurring last week in Townsville when Parliament was sitting on the Monday night, where Minister O'Rourke from the Department of Communities explained in a town hall setting to local suppliers and subcontractors what the department was trying to do to ensure that we can meet the demands for these welfare support and employment transition services. I'm pleased to say that by the end of this month, the first package, the early works package to build the roads around the site, will be open to tender, and it's the government's aim by the end of October to have the main works package sent to the market in Townsville to allow the main works construction to occur with a potential end date of around Anzac Day 2020. It is a major project in Townsville. The overall project costs, including the Commonwealth Government support, is over $11.5 million. The Department of Veterans Affairs confirmed last week that the appropriations bill is being presented to the House of Representatives this week to allow the $5 million from the federal government to be made available. And the Queensland Government is working positively with the Commonwealth Government to ensure all funding is in place to allow the project to be completed by mid to late next year, but with an aim to have at least part of the site open for Anzac Day next year. The contract itself will allow for 34 new jobs to be occurring on site, full-time jobs, but of course there'll be a lot more people involved in the process other than full-time jobs in the construction of the project. The Oasis Townsville is going to be operated by a NGO called the Oasis Townsville, which has retired Lieutenant General John Caligari as its chairman and former ADF staff as the main directors on that board. It's a great project for a great city that has the largest army contingent in the country resident in it. So I'll be pleased to take any questions at the end.
Great, thank you so much. And we do have a couple of questions. So I'll throw it to, it'll probably be obvious who it's meant to be for, but anyone can jump in. Casey, you mentioned partnerships in your piece. Someone's asking, what does that mean? Hang on, you're on mute, love.
There we go. Now you can hear me. So we partnered with partnerships with ex-service organisations to promote promote the Queensland Government as an employer. We promoted our virtual careers fair through some of those ex-service organisations, and we're also working with them, a couple of ex-service organisations to when we have roles that we want to promote, like specific job opportunities that we want to get out, perhaps to the veteran kind of employment, veteran, group of people, that we also use them to promote those kind of opportunities as well. So it's probably more ad hoc now, but we did rely on them a lot to get the word out about the Veterans Virtual Careers Fair in particular. So.
Okay, thank you. And the other one is you kind of answered it, but I think they were wanting to know specifically what sort of roles are veterans mainly being employed in?
It's probably those ones that I had up on screen. So let me just quickly flick to them. But it really is really quite broad. So I wouldn't have said there was one particular skill set that veterans seem to be attracted to. It is really quite broad. So it is, there are teachers, teacher aides, nursing is quite a big one, but also in those corporate roles. So HR is a big one in leadership roles, community-based roles. There's youth detention workers. There's honestly, it is that broad. I couldn't even pick it down to one particular lot, as well as obviously the uniformed people like police and also Queensland Fire and Emergency Services. So.
Okay, thank you. And for the benefit of people who may have just joined us after we started, please feel free to ask questions. It's a brief session today because these are busy people, so we're lucky to have them. So if you've got a question, please pop that in the Q&A box. Another question is, are there any plans to link up with private sector transition? So is there something that in the veteran space, veteran employment space, that I know you've talked about government employment, but is there any plans, or are there plans to work alongside DCO to perhaps get people transitioned into private sector?
I probably would hand maybe over to Kiralee. Do you want to take this one? Or I'm from the Public Service Commission, so my I guess purpose is to really lead the employment into the Queensland public sector specifically. So probably not from my perspective, because we really are focused on the sector and their employment needs and their future workforce. So I probably wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Okay, Kiralee, can we throw to you?
Yeah, you bet. So Casey in the Public Service Commission has been leading a piece of work that, as she said, was an election commitment. And it was a project that was on foot was certainly on foot for 12 months and has been lingering on a little bit longer than that. There's a view across government that certainly veterans employment is something that the Queensland Government wants to continue to promote and target. And I think on the back of Casey's 12-month program, the targets that were set were for 100 opportunities. And Casey, just for 1 second, I'll flick back to you. We're currently at how many?
316 placed. So not just opportunities, placed veterans into the sector.
Yeah. So from a Queensland Government perspective, that initiative has certainly gone quite a bit better than we had hoped in the first instance, which is great. So the view is now to continue that initiative and look at opportunities that we have to expand it. And I think there's certainly an appetite to look to see, not just within the public service, but how we join up with other organisations in the private sector and also the non-government sector. So, for example, we've been having conversations with some of our ex-service organisations to try to see what we can do to leverage the employment programs they've got in place and how we can both work together to benefit all of the parties to improve that employment piece. So I think we're not there yet. The focus has just been to date on public sector employment, but I certainly think in the coming months there will be an appetite to look to see what we can do to expand that program further.
Thank you. And I think question now for Michael. Michael, what else is the Oasis Centre? Is that going to be government run, or is that literally being run by the charity?
It is being run by the Oasis Townsville, which is a registered charity, which is basically managed by ex-ADF staff.
Okay, that was the only question. Okay, look, in the absence of any other questions, I think we might call it for the afternoon. Can I say thank you so much for your willingness to be involved in this? Kiralee, you were fantastic in contacting me very early on and organising yourselves to be the very last webinar of the summit. So thank you so much for being part of it and your time today, and to the team. Thank you very much.
Okay. And Jackie, thanks to you for organising this and giving us an opportunity to showcase some of the initiatives that we have on foot in the Queensland Government. That's very appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.